Most people see this symbol when they think of the Valknut, and when you go on the internet and do a search for it or look for videos on it, this is the symbol you will find. But is this the real Valknut?
The most fascinating symbols used by the Vikings was the Valknut. While this symbol of three interlocking triangles survives in a lot of archaeological contexts, its meaning is not written down anywhere.
The answer is no, it's not. This is not the Valknut. This is in fact a lightning bolt, and we can talk about that in another episode. It's a misunderstanding and a mistranslation in some ways that this is the Valknut, from text mentioning the Valknut on the Gotland picture stones, but it's not. But when it came onto the internet and people started talking about it, it spread incredibly fast, and now everyone thinks it's a Valknut, but it's not. It's a lightning bolt. It has become a strange misconception that everything with the word Val in it has a connection to Odin, but that isn't so. Val can mean many more things. You probably heard of the Val as in Valkyria or in Valhalla, and those are connected to Odin and the dead on the battlefield, as Mr. Crawford talks about.
Val means dead bodies on the battlefield. It's the same word that you see in Valkyria, chooser of the dead bodies on the battlefield, or Valhall, the hall of the men killed in battle.
And as Mr. Crawford mentioned, this is probably why it has been connected to Odin. This pointed thing is a lightning bolt and has nothing to do with Odin. The word Valr can also mean something connected to or occurring by magic, like in the word Valbunden. And the word Völva or Vala also comes from the word Volr, meaning wand or magic wand. And when a Völva or a Vala casts their magic with their wand on an object, it becomes Valbundet or Valbunden. And Valbunden of course means tied by magic. They cast their magic on an object and ties that object to their magic, or their magic to that object. An example of this would be the bewitched tree root in the saga of Grethe the Strong. This could of course mean that this symbol is a knot that is tied by magic, so it's a magic knot. But what would be the purpose of putting a magic knot on a stone? For what reason? What would it mean or symbolize? It doesn't mean anything. It's just a magic symbol then, doing exactly what? What does it do? Why is it there? What's about this scene that means it needs a symbol of a magic knot that's magic just by not having a beginning or an end? That doesn't make any sense, does it? So that's more evidence that this is not the Valknut. Well, what is a Valknut then? Well, maybe you've heard of the Turkish knot, or the ring braid, or the knotted braid or braid knot. Many words for the same thing. That's a knot used in ships or by sailors. It's also been used in the army for many peoples. It has many names, but this is what it looks like. And the word Valknut appears in older texts, not that ancient maybe, but from the inventory list from Gripsholm Castle in 1553. We can read: a tablecloth with two widths, bordered sewn with black silk in a pattern of Valknútr and leaves. And from the diaries of the Swedish explorer Carl von Linné in his book Öländska and Gotländska Resa from 1745, his travels in Öland and Gotland in 1745. On the churchyard stood two high runestones with politely intricate loops like Valknútr. So these are the stones that Carl von Linné saw on that churchyard. Does it look like the lightning bolt symbol? I don't think it does. But does it look like the Turkish knot or the braided knot? I think it does. So I think we have found the Valknut we're looking for. So it's this symbol we're looking for, it's this symbol we are looking at, and the question remains, what does it mean? Why did he use it? Why is it there? What's the purpose? To answer this question, I think we should go to the topic of tapestries, or tapestries, however you pronounce that. We now have a weird perception that images has to portray something of the past, something that has happened or is happening. So the past or present. But what if they actually portray something that is about to happen in the future? There are some ancient texts or old texts mentioning women weaving the future of battles, for example. Like this part from Burnt Njál's saga, or Brende Njál's saga, we can read, "He went into that bower and looked in through a window slit that was in it, and saw that there were women inside, and they had set up a loom. Men's heads were the weights, but men's entrails were the warp and wed. A sword was the shuttle, and the reels were arrows." And they sang a horrible war song, weaving the outcome magically into the woof. We also know about the three Norns, the three women living in the roots of Yggdrasil, the world tree, and they weave the fate of men. So they have the three Norns, Urd, Skuld and Verdandi, which means the past, the present and the future. And now we also have the texts about these women weaving their woof with magic, singing magic songs and weaving the future into the woof. Now, many people might think that the three Norns are the only Norns, but there are many Norns. These are just the three living in the roots of Yggdrasil. If you look at a tapestry, it may be a memory or a picture or an ancient Instagram of something that has happened, but it could also be an image about something that is about to happen, like someone have woven the future into the woof, into the image. And to be a picture of what has happened, there should be things that we can find in history, or like in the Bayeux tapestry, we can basically see that this is an image of what has happened, what has taken place, because it kind of has a story in it that it's easily checked. But there are many tapestries, and some of them could very well be images of things that are about to happen, magic woven into the woofs of these tapestries. And if we accept this, that this kind of magic was a thing, which it probably was, or the sagas wouldn't mention it, what says that these stones couldn't be the same thing? These are, after all, picture stones. They don't have any text. They don't mention, like other rune stones, that this person did this, or died there, or took part in that battle or that journey. These are images, just simple images, and that could mean that they portray the past. It could mean that they portray the future. We don't know. There's nothing to indicate which. But the scenes on these picture stones are surrounded by the Valknut, or Valknútr in plural. So it could very well be that these stones portray something that has been magically carved in the stone and is surrounded by the Valknut, just like a tapestry is woven with Valknútr. Like everything you see on a tapestry is a Valknut. A Valknut isn't a specific symbol like the lightning bolt we showed in the beginning, but the Valknut is the actual thread that knots the pattern into the woof. The knot of the vulva tying this future magically onto the stone with Valknútr makes a lot more sense than having a round magic knot that isn't round and not actually a knot either, doesn't it? But if we go with the explanation of Val meaning something with the fallen, or fallen the slain warriors or something, this could actually be the same thing but from the other direction, from another perspective. It could be the past, as the scenes on the stones depict what has happened, but the knot surrounding the scene tells us that this was these men's fate. They were bound to this fate by the Valknut of the Norns, the fates. So it could mean it's magically foreseeing the future and magically making this future happen with the Valknut, or it could mean in past tense that this happened and this was the fate of these men or people. So in whichever case, it still makes sense. I just want to make it clear that we should not be so certain that every picture or image has to portray what has happened. It could just as well portray something that is willed to happen or magically spelled to happen. It's very important that when we try to interpret historic events or historic things, archaeological things like stones with pictures on them or tapestries with pictures on them, we should try to look at it from their perspective, from when they made it. If we look at it from our perspective, we will only see what we think or what we believe or what we want it to be. So we have to look at it with their perspective. Why did they do this? So if a modern historian or archaeologist doesn't believe in magic, says magic is nonsense, they will never see magic in anything. But if the people who made these tapestries and stones believed in magic, and they weaved magic into tapestries and carved magic into stones, then magic is what we're looking at, and we have to see it from their perspective, not from our perspective. If we try to explain things that happened 1,000 years ago from a culture we know very little about with our modern perspective and views, we won't find much, because none of it will make sense. It will be pictures and words and signs and things, markings that mean nothing to us. But if we look at it with their perspective, what they believe, then it makes much more sense. So I don't actually care if you believe in magic or not. It doesn't matter, because when we're looking at things from the 500 CE to the 800 CE, 400 CE, around zero, we have to look at it with their perspective. What did they believe? If it was magic to them, then it's magic. If it's not magic to you, it doesn't matter. If it was magic to them, that's what matters, not what you think today. I don't care if you believe in magic or not. I think we're looking at magic. We could say that these stones are valbundna, or valbound, fate-bound, as they are surrounded by this Valknut, or val knots, or fate knots. And this means they bear with them the magic cast by the vulva to magically create this future. It wouldn't make any sense at all to tie something with magic if it's already happened. So I think we are looking at the prediction by a vulva of something that is about to happen. And these stones are magically predicting or foretelling these futures. I do not think that these are images of the past that they have surrounded with these Valknut. An example of something with Valknut that is talking about the past is this runestone that has the runes written in the lining of Valknútr, written as a regular epitaph runestone raised by Rörik after Froða and Asbjörn, his sons who were bound by their fate to die as they did. So this stone is actually mentioning the past and has Valknut pattern around the runes, and runes are written in the Valknut pattern. So that tells us that the fate that happened to these sons of Rörik was bound by fate. And this could be a way to deal with the sorrow of his lost sons. That what happened to them was their fate. So there's nothing to cry about. They're dead, they're gone. Yes, you're sad about that, but it was their fate, so it was meant to happen. So these image stones on Gotland, I say they are predictions, magic predictions of things to happen. Maybe before a big battle, when hundreds of ships were sailing away to another country to raid or whatever. And as I said, this other stone is talking about the past tense, that this was these sons' fate. So what happened to this Valknut system of making runestones? Did it go away? Did it live on? Do we see it somewhere else? Well, the stones on Gotland seems to be the only, or I haven't seen many others actually, but the picture stones on Gotland seems to be the ones with pictures surrounded by Valknútr, meaning basically they are foretelling the future. But we have lots of text surrounded by Valknútr in the Valknut, and the Valknut surrounding the text, or the Valknut somewhere close to the text. And these other stones are talking about the past tense. They are talking about what has happened, or is happening, or mostly what has happened, like epitaphs over dead people and stuff like that. I don't think you've thought about that these actually are Valknútr, because the only time we mention Valknútr is with the stones on Gotland, but there are lots of Valknut stones all over Scandinavia. Take a look at these knots, for example. These are different forms and shapes of the Valknut. Then look at these stones. I don't know if you see it as well, but I see a likeness. The knots and the runestones look very much alike. And this could be a regional variation of how to make the Valknut. It could be the difference in past or future, as the Gotland stones seems to predict the future and these other stones seem to talk about the past. So that could be a difference. That Valknut is presented on these stones as this was these men's fate, or these men and women's fate, as the Gotland stones predict the future with magic. So that could be two different styles, not just local regional variations of the Valknut, but it can also be a different purpose, past or future. And you can call these stones Mammen style or Ringerike style, or whatever style you want to call them. That doesn't really matter, because when they were carved, they didn't call them Mammen style or Ringerike style or any other kind of style. They made a rune stone. That's, yeah, full stop. And the different styles we talk about today is mainly connected to the rune animal seen on these stones. But from rope style, like from the Gotland stones, to snake or serpent style, to rune animal style, I see that as an evolution, maybe over time. So Or it could also mean different things if it's a serpent or in an animal. We don't know that. We'll never know that. We could analyze maybe the contents of the text and see if there's anything pointed to any specific direction. But I think it has, if it's a serpent or an animal, I believe that is more artistic freedom than meaning and purpose. So the Valknut represents the past, the present, and the future. It has something to do with our fate. The Valknut is connected to fate, and if that fate is concerning someone who died in a certain way, in a certain place, in a certain event or happening or battle or whatever, or it is concerning a legal text, like who owns this land and who inherits these lands, or if it's connected to the future in the sense of what's going to happen. It's still fate. It's still the Urd, Skuld and Verdandi. It's still the past, the present and the future, tied to the three Norns living in the root of Yggdrasil. And these Norns, as I said before, are not the only Norns. It's just the three Norns that make the weaves or woofs of the fates, of the threads of fate. There are other Norns mentioned in many places. So, after saying this, what do you think? Do you still think that this is the Valknut, or do you think this could be the Valknut? Let me know what you think in the comments. Thanks for watching. See you next time.